welcome to the Phoenix Rising podcast. I am your host, Ashley Drummonds. If this is your first time listening to the Phoenix Rising podcast, I am so happy that you are here. Welcome. We're going to talk about a lot of deep stuff today. Some of it might be a little bit weird, but that's probably why you're here too, because you're into things like mindset, personal growth, spirituality, and all kinds of things to help you connect deeper to yourself and your life. Head on over to ashleydrummonds.com. This is where, so heads up, a couple people have asked about the weekly podcast. So I am producing weekly content. Here's the thing. Sometimes I do it by writing articles and posts, and I email these out to you every single week. And sometimes I do it by producing a podcast, maybe 2 podcasts, 3 podcasts every single week. It just kind of depends on how I'm feeling and where I'm feeling the inspiration. So if you are wanting to get those weekly emails that I send out, so this past week I sent out 2 actually. One was all about like natural ways to reduce anxiety, overwhelm, and burnout. And then I sent out another one on, what was the other one on? I actually don't remember. I sent out another, on how to use your workouts as a form of meditation. So I sent out both of those within the last 7 to 10 days. So if you would like to get those emails from me every single week to keep you inspired, to keep you continually growing, then head over to ashleydrummonds.com. You will see multiple spots where you can sign up for that. You'll also see an opportunity if you do want to work with me as your fitness, nutrition, and mindset coach. That is also at ashleydrummonds.com. All right. Now we're going to get into today's podcast episode, which is all about how to let go of the old and move into the new. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about this is, one, I actually don't know the exact date, but yes, I do. We had a new moon, November 5th. New moons, ironically, it doesn't take a genius to figure this out, are all about new beginnings, new cycles, new opportunities, new waves of growth. So full moons are kind of about things coming to a completion, the end of a cycle, where a new moon is new intentions. What do you want to do over the next 30, 35 days, which is usually how the moon and lunar cycles work. So I wanted to talk about this because this last week, as it was building up to the new moon, a lot of people were finding themselves in situations where it was almost impossible to continue going on with their life the way they had been going on with it. Meaning like, and I mean myself included, I've had situations where I'm like, I just cannot do this anymore. It can be something energetic. It can be a certain lifestyle habit. It can be people. It can be places where like you may have felt over this last week that you are just done. And the good thing is that means that you're ready. It means you're ready to fully move into the new. However, once that new moon kind of passes and that, like, I call it a portal. It's like, all right, here's the opening. Do you want to continue with the old or do you want to move into the new? You're like, totally move me into the new. I'm ready. Like, let's go. Then that opening kind of closes for a second, a few days, and you find yourself in the in-between. The in-between is where you're like, all right, I know I want to move into the new. I know what I want to head into, but yet it feels like this old part of me or this old thing is still stuck on me. And I don't really know how to let go of that. So that's what we're going to talk about. In Buddhism, they actually have a specific term for this. It's called the bardo. So the bardo, in the most simplest terms, is described as an intermediate state between one life and the next. So they're talking about like when you actually physically die, and you're stuck in between like the physical death and then what happens in the after death. Well, that's kind of right. Afterlife. But they also talk to it specifically in terms of the death of one identity moving into another identity. And this is what meditation and awareness is really all about. So we're going to get into this because once you kind of understand this, and I'm going to do my best to explain this, you actually know how to navigate the transitions of your life a little bit better without being so scared and without functioning from fear-based, because you recognize what is happening is you're kind of going through this, I'll call it a mini death. And obviously it's not physical, but it is a death of emotions and thoughts and ways of being. And it's literally the death of an identity that you have carried while you are discovering what this new identity and this new path looks like. So you're in the in-between. And what happens when you're in the in-between, or AKA, as they call it in Buddhism, the bardo, is your mind can't handle it. So our brain is constantly trying to solve problems for us. So when we detach from a habitual way of thinking and being and living life, your mind is having a death of neural circuits. So basically, like all these brain waves and patterns that have been functioning fine on autopilot for years. And all of a sudden you're like, nope, I'm done with that. Your mind freaks out because it's like, okay, if we're not doing that, then tell us what to do instead. And the thing is you don't totally know what you're doing instead either, because you're in the process of self-discovery and rebirth and all these things. So when you start to practice awareness and meditation and mindfulness in this, and you understand what I'm going to explain, then as you go through the letting go and the moving into the new, you can actually relax and practice awareness, because you realize your mind is trying to attach to something in order to save its identity, but you can just let it be, let things go, and allowing yourself to be in the in-between, or like I said, as Buddha calls it, the bardo. So here's the crazy thing is a lot of times if we find ourselves stuck and it feels like we're just running in circles and spinning and not getting anywhere, yet we try a lot of different things, it is usually because we have not let go of the old and we're trying to create the new within the old. Hopefully that makes sense. So with this, the way that you get unstuck and the way you fully move into the new is by becoming aware of what is even happening. So this takes you being very connected to yourself, connected to your habits and your patterns, having the recognition of who you are, knowing what you tend to do over and over, even if it's simple of like, maybe you have a pattern of every time you get stressed out, you head to Dairy Queen or you head to the grocery store and buy a giant chocolate cake. If you're aware of this pattern, then we can change it. Or maybe every time that your career gets hard or things don't go your way, you go and start applying for new jobs doing the exact same thing. Like that's a pattern. So when we have patterns and cycles that we go through over and over, yet we're trying to get out of them, we have to first become aware of what our patterns are and recognize the beliefs and the identities that are wrapped around that. So that I'm not going to get so much into because that'll take a lot of your own self-discovery and processing of basically just like, all right, why do you continue to go after jobs that you don't actually want? Why do you continue to eat food that doesn't actually move you towards your goals? Why do you continue to choose partners who are not what you want? I can't answer that for you, only you can. And when you identify it, normally I tell people it's never actually about what you think it's about. It stems from something subconsciously and emotionally that goes way back, which is why it's stuck. It gets stuck because you think, oh, it's just a new job. It's just a new diet plan. It's just a new relationship. Has nothing to do with that. It's something deeper. What is the emotional connection or the emotional memory or the subconscious beliefs that you have around that? So again, to give you a quick example, it can be something as simple as, all right, so we have the same job that we keep repeating over and over. We're changing the places, but we're not actually feeling any different. So what can be happening is maybe you have some sort of belief system of, well, actually my dream is I always want to be a business owner or an entrepreneur, but deep down you don't feel good enough, qualified enough, or capable enough, or smart enough, or whatever it is. So you never actually go after what you want. Instead, you keep going after what you don't want, ending up in the same cycle. Or it can be too, what happens is both with jobs, career, businesses, relationships, sometimes the person that you were when you started that journey is no longer who you are now. So when you constantly try to create those situations as the new person that you are, but with situations that align with the old person, you're going to find yourself constantly stuck. So this is why, our natural processes in life are to evolve and grow. Sometimes we outgrow these things a lot faster than other things. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it is so deeply ingrained in us that we do need help from somebody outside to figure out what it is. But pretty much it's trying to figure out how to really explain this and break it down because it's such like a personalized thing. And it's so, when I work with clients, it's so much easier than like explaining on the podcast because I can ask very specific questions of like, okay, actually, we'll just do that. If you were one of my clients of like, okay, when did this pattern start? What was going on at your life when this started? What is the emotional connection or the emotional memory you have with this? And normally there's something there. And then we work backwards of like, okay, this whole time you've been focused on this relationship, but it's actually not about the relationship. Not saying that the relationship doesn't and won't change. But right now, in order to even get you out of this pattern, we have to first identify what created this pattern to begin with. Otherwise, if we don't do that work, then you can change the relationship and you're going to find yourself in the exact same situation in a new one. So first, before we go making all these external changes, first thing you have to do is this self-discovery process, digging deep within yourself and asking yourself the hard questions of like, all right, clearly applying for a bunch of different jobs isn't doing it. Moving around to a bunch of different places isn't doing it. Changing everything outside of myself isn't doing it. So let me stop trying to change the external world and let's take a look at where all of this is stemming from. So that's the beginning part of letting go. So I actually recently, I was telling a friend about this. So I believe 100%, and you'll probably recognize this when I explain this, that things hold energy. Everything holds energy. Everything in life, from nature and animals to the chair or the car or whatever, it holds some sort of energy that we are connected to. Now, sometimes it's good energy. Perhaps you have like, I don't know, a sweater that brings you comfort and love because it was your parents or some friends or something like that. Sometimes you have like a blanket or sometimes a picture, whatever, that can hold good, loving, positive energy. Other times, though, we can have things that they're not necessarily good or bad, but I consider them kind of stuck energy or stagnant energy. Basically, it's kind of like when you're cleaning out your closet and you have all these clothes that you use regularly and you're like, yeah, I need that, I need that, I need that. But then you have clothes that you haven't worn in like 6 months that are just there. They're not bad, but also you don't use them. So why are they there? They're just taking up space. So this is what I call stuck energy. So recently, with this new moon and a lot of things that are going on and my own process of moving into some new things, I woke up one morning and I immediately just knew. I was like, crap, I got to get rid of that stuff. Like I can feel the energy behind it. And it's weird because like it's stuff that I have had for years. And not once did I ever associate that it had any kind of energetic connection to it. But I just, the saying goes, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. The teacher is always there, but the student must be ready. And I woke up and I was like, yep, that's got to go. And it was like 6:30 in the morning. It's still dark out. It's beautiful though. Like, man, just so many stars. It's like 50, 55 degrees outside. So it's crisp and it's cool. And I have this, well, not anymore. I have this box. So I think a lot of people have a box or a bag or something. And basically it's just memories. So it's memories from like childhood, from friends over the years, from relationships, from experiences and events. And it's just got all this stuff in it. And a lot of it, like I keep, like I'm one of those people that if somebody writes me a really sentimental card, I keep it. I keep it because it means a lot. And when I look at it, it brings me joy and it makes me feel love. So it's a good energy that I want to feel. I do the same thing with pictures that make me feel that way. But so inside this box, feel like I'm doing, if you've ever watched Jimmy Fallon with Box of Lies, he's like, in my box, there is a Rubik's Cube inside of Jell-O. You lie. Okay, anyways. So inside this box, I have hundreds of corks, wine corks over the years, probably the last it's longer than 10 years. God, I don't know, 10, 11, 12 years. And what these are is these are corks from bottles of wine that I have shared with people over the last 10 to 12 years. And on each cork is written the memory of those people who I shared it with. So it's a lot. I mean, stuff from when I was like 21, 22, a lot of different friends that have come and gone, a lot of different relationships that have come and gone, business experiences, life experiences, moving, all these things. Okay. So it's that. And then I also had some like notes and letters and pictures from a few past relationships. Again, none of these things did I feel necessarily any kind of emotion to. Like, it's not like I was reading these and all of a sudden I burst in tears, or it's just, I don't know. It just is. It was just there. I didn't really feel like I should get rid of it, but also it didn't really spark any kind of like emotional reaction in me. So it didn't seem like a big deal. However, there were certain areas of my life that I had felt stuck. And earlier this week, when I had this moment, I woke up and I was like, I have to get rid of that. That like, it literally serves no purpose. And I have been carrying these things around from place to place over years for no reason. Like, all it's literally doing is taking up space right now. So I woke up, I grabbed this box, I sat there, like got my mind quiet. I did some breathing and I just like asked, I was like, all right, guide me, show me what needs to go. And I didn't get rid of everything. It was just like, all right, I know that there's some stuff in here that has an energetic hold. Show me what needs to go and I will let it go completely. And man, that entire box, hundreds of wine corks with hundreds of memories written on it, I burned all of it, every last one. And it's nuts because as I'm like going through it, like, I'm glad I did it because it's kind of funny. I'm like, why did I ever keep all this to begin with? Like, this is just stagnant energy that's been sitting here. These memories don't actually live in these corks. These memories live inside of me, but like the energy that all of these hold, I don't want to hold on to this energy anymore because these people no longer are a part of my life. These experiences are no longer a part of my life. So I burned all those. I burned letters and notes and pictures that were like, I could feel it held an energy, and the way, like, you can just tell, you can pick something up if you really quiet your mind and you sit with something. If you just hold it for a second and see how it feels in your body, do you feel anything? Does your chest get tight? Do you feel heaviness? Like, if so, it needs to go. Or does it feel just kind of like meh, like blah, nothing's there? Then it probably needs to go too. If it feels light and happy and joyous, then it can stay. That's the kind of energy that you want to keep. So that's what I was doing. And man, I went through some, you might hear Bear, by the way, he is having a fight with his stuffed seal right now. Anyways, I let go so much, and it is nuts because obviously it's a lot of stuff to burn, but as I'm burning it and it's dark, and yes, it's 6:30 in the morning. I am a morning person. I'm sitting there and I'm watching it burn, and I can feel my chest, not in a bad way, but like, I can feel the emotions behind everything that I am burning. And I recognized it, and I just sat there and I'm watching it and I'm breathing through it. And I'm like, this is nuts. Like, this is stuff from so long ago. I can't believe that, like, I even feel anything around this. But as soon as it was done, I have this big pile of ashes. I purposely burned it like in a safe space so I could just like grab this container and throw it away. I'm sitting there, it's dark, and all that's left is like years of memories and ashes, which isn't really all that ironic considering this is called Phoenix Rising, which is all about rebirth from the ashes. But so, and then I look up and I see 2 shooting stars in the morning, which is amazing. And I'm like, all right, universe, well, I totally trust you. I let go what I feel like was just stagnant energy, and I am open to whatever is coming. So there's things you can do like this that are kind of, I guess you could say, symbolic. And you have to trust this though. So like, after that, I was just on this letting go frenzy. Like, I came back upstairs in my apartment and I like stood in my closet. I was like, that dress has got to go. Those shoes, those shorts, those socks, that box, this paper, that picture. Like, I just was on a cleaning, clearing, letting go frenzy. But before I do that stuff, and you can do this as well, when you're really ready to like let go of some old stuff that just isn't serving you anymore, you can start it with the intention of like, all right, universe, I'm ready to move past this. I'm ready to let this go. Let me physically letting all this go be a symbol of the actual energetic and emotional energy of the death of this old version of myself and moving into and opening up, because that's really what it's about, is opening up all this space to allow the new to even come in. Because what happens with a lot of people when they let go and they're like, yep, I'm done. I'm over this. I'm moving on. They forget to actually open up the space to even allow it to come in. So this is like the perfect scenario. This is the perfect scenario when people try to go from one relationship to the next without ending one. It's just like this, like there wasn't even a gap in between. And then they get in the new relationship and then the same patterns are repeated. It's like, well, because there was never any room for the new person to exist. Even if like physically the other relationship was gone, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, everything connected to the old was never actually, well, I don't really know another way of saying this, was never like burned to the ground. It's just been sitting there as this stuff that you brought into your new relationship. It's what people call baggage. But then it's the same thing with jobs too. So one of the things you can do along with this, with letting go of the old and moving into the new, and this works for some people, it doesn't work for everybody. It has worked for the last 12, 13, 14 years of my life very significantly, is when I am on the cusp of, all right, I know. So actually, for example, right now, like I know I just had like this death of an old identity and I am moving into the new, and I'm pretty confident of what the new is that I'm moving into. But right now I'm in the bardo, the in between. So the in between, to keep my mind, my emotions, and my identity from going back to the old, because it's so easy. Your mind needs something to attach to. It's just, that's how it works. It's not a bad thing. It's just how it works. So for me, because of the awareness, and you can use this too with your awareness, before I dive into the new, what I will do is I will either take a trip for like a week, or I'll go somewhere for a few weeks. I'll do something to get out of the familiar place that I had my old identity. So this includes people, routine places, even like, God, even the grocery store, the gym, whatever it might be. I will go away to give my mind open space so that it can't fall back into that old pattern until it has fully reattached to the new pattern. And I realize this isn't something that like everybody can just like up and leave and go away for a few weeks. But even if you do it in your day-to-day life, so like stop going to the same gym for a few weeks, stop going to the same grocery store, stop hanging, take a break from some of your friends for a few weeks, like whatever you got to do. Because here's what happens is if you try to release and break and allow an old part of yourself to die. And I realize death is such a heavy word, but that's really what it is. It's letting go. When you're in that place, it is very hard to move into the new part of you when you are surrounded by people, places, and things that hold the vibrational energy and the identity of the old you that no longer exists. So every person in our life is constantly helping act as a mirror of how we see ourselves. And there's people who grow with us and are helping us evolve and grow into our best selves. And then there's people that hold us to an old part of ourselves. It's the old, like I don't know, maybe it's your drinking buddies that you went out with when you were like 22 and you no longer want to go out except for you're moving into the new, they are not. So every single weekend, they're like, I don't understand. Like, why aren't we going out? They continually hold the memory for you of who you used to be. So sometimes to give yourself the opportunity to move into the new, and again, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a pattern, a lifestyle habit, whatever it is, sometimes you just need a break to fully consider this like, okay, actually, here we go. Consider this as if you were actually grieving a death. What do you do in everything? With jobs, with friends, with life. You give yourself the time and space to grieve before you dive right back into life. So consider this the same thing with your ego and your identity, because if you do that, then when you go to move into the new, you're actually going to do it with commitment, with a clean slate, and without any of the emotional baggage from the previous identity, so that you don't fall back into old habits. So, like I said, when you're aware of this and you understand this, which is why I'm doing this podcast, and you're like, all right, I no longer, even if it's a personality, I no longer am somebody who is insecure, who has low self-esteem, who is overly sensitive, who does self-sabotage, who doesn't think they're good enough. I'm no longer that person. All right. So you think about this, you're like, yeah, I definitely am not that person anymore. However, if every relationship, friendship, and situation in your life only knows you as that person, it's going to be really hard for you to confidently move into this new, happy, assertive, strong, empowered person that you want to be in that same environment. So instead, recognize this letting go of who you no longer are. Go away for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even if going away just means going to new places within your same area, to give yourself the opportunity to discover, to not only let go of the old, but also discover, what does this new even look like? You're going to have to figure that out before you can confidently show up that way. And then when you're ready, you can move fully into the new and let go of all the stuff as the old. But when you're in that bardo, you're in that in between, you got to give yourself the time to go through this. So this book, I think I've mentioned it a couple times, this book about this Buddhist monk who he spent his whole life in monasteries and training with enlightened masters. And he left the monastery at 36 because he wanted to enter into the real world with everything he had learned and trained with his mind to see how it works. So he talks about this specific thing where he went through the process of death of his identity and his mindset and the rebirth between his death being like this highly respected person in a monastery, and everywhere he went, people treated him like royalty, to now he's not wearing his robes. Nobody knows who he is. So nobody treats him any different than anybody else. And his mind is having this issue because he's like, I don't know who I am without these robes, without the adoration, without people respecting me, except for I chose to go into this new to discover this. And now I'm stuck in the in-between. So this is just a part from the book that he talks about, and I'll read it to you, because he says in Buddhism, we always ask, what will you do in the bardo? And what I'm referring to is the bardo of becoming, the stage between dying and rebirth, an intermediate period fraught with difficulties for those who have cultivated no mental equanimity in this lifetime. So basically, he talks about how his brother had this experience when his brother also lived with him in the monastery. That's like a very quiet, relaxed place of mind, and then decided to move into the city. So his brother's struggling in the city because he's like, it's noisy, people are everywhere, I have no space, I have no privacy. And this particular monk is saying, my brother was in between a quiet rural life and a noisy urban experiment. He was in between the old and familiar and the new and the unknown, in between the past and the present. So what do you do in the bardo? What are you going to do in the midst of frightening sounds, or in a crowded arena, or in a train, or in a terrorist attack, or in a war, or any one of life's countless unwanted events? What about a diagnosis of ill health, a flat tire, a perception of being slighted or disrespected or rejected? What will you do when you experience your life as being interrupted by undesired circumstances? Are you able to maintain a steady mind and a steady state of awareness that can accommodate what you don't want and actually benefit to yourself and others? Or will you implode through fear, anger, and a deep insecurity because of loss of control? For example, how do you act when you do not get what you want? Or when you do not want what you have? When you're in the bardo of becoming, which is right now in this present moment between the death of the old you and the birth of whatever is coming next, becoming, always in the bardo of the unknown, and the uncertain and the transient, can you keep a steady state of mind knowing that change is the only constant thing in life? And if you cannot get comfortable in the bardo, in the in-between of letting go of who you used to be and who you're becoming, knowing that all of these are just identities, they're not actually who you are. Who you are is the steady state of awareness that you can hold in the in-between. By the way, Bear is still going nuts. He's not feeling this letting go. So if you hear like a little, that's what you hear in the background. But anyways, so this is why meditation and mindfulness is so important, because here's the thing. If you can totally sit in the unknown, sit with not knowing who you are, not knowing where you're going, not knowing what's coming next, knowing that you're letting go of something, but you don't really know what's moving into the new, but holding on to the steady state of awareness, understanding it doesn't really matter, because as soon as you attach to that, some point in life, you're going to die to that again and again and again. Whether you're dying to a job, you're dying to, maybe you're a mom, and then now all of a sudden, like, your kids are grown and out of the house, and now you don't really know who you are without being a mom. Maybe you're married and now you're single, and now it's the death of being a married person and figuring out how to be a single person. Maybe you're self-employed and then you're getting a job, or maybe you have a job and then you're becoming self-employed. We constantly are dying and reinventing and rebirthing ourselves all the time. The beautiful thing is when you have the understanding and the awareness that change is inevitable, it's going to happen, you will always find yourself in the in-between. And if you can learn to sit and hold a steady state of mind, knowing that whatever comes is not actually a part of you, it's just a part of your experience, and it's a part of this life, and that the real part of you is what you can find in your mental awareness and mindset state, then you liberate yourself. You're free. You're no longer in a rush in the rebirth, but you're also no longer running back to your past, because you realize none of that actually holds the truth of who you are. These are just experiences that you chose. And once you outgrow them or grow into them, you can let go of the unknown. But in the meantime, if you can sit in the unknown, in the bardo, you hold all of the power, not the circumstances outside of yourself. So, like, using the example the monk gave of the brother that's complaining about being in the city life because he's used to the rural life, it's because he has not fully let go of the rural life to fully live in the new life. And this is why I said sometimes, at least for me, the best thing you can do when you're letting go of something and you're moving into something new, in that in between, go somewhere, do something unfamiliar to give yourself time to fully be able to open up the space to move into the new. Otherwise, what will happen is you move into the new and you're complaining about the new because it doesn't look like the old. And it's like, well, that's because you haven't fully let go of the old. Otherwise, it's the idea of giving the new the opportunity to even exist as it is without comparing it to the old. So a story about this, that actually, again, in this book, that this Buddhist monk refers to when he was working with this woman, or she was coming to see him because she was struggling with this in-between, was she had this lifelong career as a certain person with a certain level of authority and respect and income level, but she felt like she had outgrown that career. It was the only thing she had done for her whole life. She just no longer was fulfilled or satisfied and felt like it was time to move on. So she did. So she moved into a new opportunity immediately. And she is seeing this Buddhist monk and letting him know of just like, I'm really glad I made the decision. It feels right that I let go of that old career. But now that I'm in this new one, there's a lot of things the new one doesn't have that my old career did have. And she's struggling because she's like, I'm trying to embrace this new and totally just let go, but there's a lot coming up of what my new career doesn't have that my old career did have. And so she's basically in this push-pull position where she's pushing the old away and trying to pull the new in. So instead, this monk tells her, he's like, what if you could just allow this time that you're in right now to be almost like a grieving process? And the important thing is that you stay present during it. So instead of trying to move through it quickly, making the new feel comfortable and like everything that you want, what if you just stayed present and aware with the feelings that you have right now and treated it as a process of mourning and grieving this career and the identity of who you were and the job you used to have and the people you used to associate yourself with, staying 100% fully present, neither pushing the feelings away, neither rejecting them and making them come closer or anything, but having that mindset, knowing that once you are done with those feelings and once you are done processing and allowing the old to die, you'll be ready to fully move into the new. But until you do that, you're never going to fully give the new the chance that it deserves, because all you're seeing is everything that was in the old and not in the new. And I know that's a lot, but essentially the idea behind it and the idea behind meditation and mindfulness in general is not to get rid of certain thought patterns. It's not, a lot of people think mindset and meditation is about clearing your mind. If that's your goal, you will be deeply frustrated. You cannot stop thoughts. You cannot completely clear and empty your mind. You might be able to for a split second, but what meditation and mindfulness is to teach you to stay aware, stay present, and allow whatever comes to come and whatever needs to go, and to just let things be without the need to push or pull or reject or control anything. The second you try to stop something, you ever notice that's when it gets worse? You ever try to like shove down an emotion and then all of a sudden that emotion is all that you can think of? Or you ever try to stop thinking about something and now that's the only thing that can come into your mind? It's because you're trying to control. So when it comes to meditation and mindset, and I had this conversation with a client on one of our calls of, she was just beating herself up about like, God, I'm so frustrated because like I was anxious and I thought I had outgrown this. And I said, look, here's what I want you to do this week. Allow permission for any emotion that comes up. Allow every thought to exist, every emotion to be there. Do not reject anything. You just simply sit there and stay present in it, understanding that every emotion is fine. They're neither good nor bad. They're just there. And when you do that, you stop giving away your power to every single thought and emotion that comes in. Instead, you see it like, oh, that's interesting. I just had a thought about this and a thought about that. It doesn't mean that's who you are. It doesn't mean it's something you need to get rid of or change. It just is. And that's what this is about. When you're letting go of old things and moving into the new, it's not about like a quick transition. And it's not about now you have to deny that your past ever existed and anything that reflects that ever existed. So now you cut it off and shut it down and just totally make it disappear. No, you accept it. You let it be, knowing that when you're ready, you will fully move into the new. And with the story that I was just given about this woman, as she was going through this and just having a hard time processing it, another woman was there with her that told her basically so this other woman had lost her son at 20 years old. She was not 20, her son was 20. So obviously like well before the time she felt like any child should pass. And this woman was consulting with the woman with her career. And she said, look, you are dying to the identity of life as you knew it. I had to die to the identity that I was a mother. I didn't know how not to be a mother. My son passed, and I had to grieve and process that life, not just that I lost with him, but the life of who I was when he existed and I was a mother. And I had to give myself the time and space to let that go in order to fully identify and move into the new. If you don't give yourself that time and space, then the new is never going to fully exist, because it's always going to be in comparison to the old. So there's a lot of different things you can do. First, as we kind of wrap this up, is one, allow whatever comes up to exist and give it permission, whether it's fear, whether it's excitement, whether it's a memory, a person, a thought, let it be. Not even going to lie to you. Just speaking of letting it be, Bear was getting very rambunctious and I stopped this recording and went in there to stop him. And I was like, oh, wow. Life lessons from Bear as I'm sitting here talking about it, letting him be And I'm in here like, no, you need to be quiet. So, foot in mouth. All right. But anyways, letting things be without the need to control them. So if you're in the unknown, let yourself fully be in the unknown. And I told my brother this because him and I are in similar situations in life right now, just a lot of transitions, which is, that's life. What am I talking about? Life is always a transition. But part of it was the struggle of feeling like I don't have a plan. I don't know what I'm doing. And just it's those days where you just feel like you're free falling and you don't know how to stop and catch yourself. And I told him, I said, look, I truly believe one of the biggest reasons we are here and the biggest lesson all of us have to learn is simply self-love. That's it. Yeah, you love yourself when things are going exactly according to plan. Yeah, you love yourself when you are thriving and on your game and totally put together and under control. Do you love yourself when you mess up? Do you love yourself when you don't have a clue of what you're doing? Do you love yourself when you don't eat perfectly, when you skip a workout, when maybe you oversleep, when maybe you lashed out in anger, when you totally effed up? Do you still love yourself? If not, if you immediately begin the process of hate, and you're like, God, I totally suck. I'm such an idiot. Can't believe I did this. I don't deserve anything. If you immediately start to go down that, well, there's your lesson. Congratulations. You're here to just learn. That's it. And if you see it as like a game, I always believe life is a lot easier if we see things as a game. So if something comes up and you immediately feel bad and you feel terrible and you start just like going down this process of insecurities and fear, ask yourself, oh, this is kind of fun. Is this an opportunity where I can learn to love myself in a way that I never have? Can I learn to love myself when I really am stuck in the bardo of in between and I just let go of a lot, but I also don't have any plan or any clue of who I am becoming? Because if you can learn to do that, then you will allow the natural flow and processes to exist without trying to rush into either. Because when you don't, and you only love yourself when you have things figured out and you only have a plan, then you're going to rush. You're going to push things away. You're going to reject because you're trying to hurry up and get to a place of safety because that's what feels most secure and that's where you feel most loved. Where if you can laugh about it and be like, oh, well, never had to love myself when I'm totally falling apart and effing up my life. This is interesting. How does this even work? Then you stay present. You relax into the discomfort and the unknown. And then you know the truth deep down that the new will come in without you needing to pull it in, and the old will disappear without you needing to push it away. Because that's the natural flow of life. So that's the other thing is as you sit and you learn to allow and be present and just let things be without trying to reject or control anything, ask yourself, can I love myself in the midst of whatever this is? Right decision, wrong decision, happiness, sadness, lost, found, secure, insecure, perfect, imperfect. It doesn't matter. So practice that. The other thing you can do is what I was describing that I had done is this whole burning process is, I do believe that one way to really clear energy is through physically cleaning and clearing out energy, letting go of stuff that is just stagnant, that's been sitting there for years, whether it's clothes, shoes, paper, dishes, I don't know, pictures, books, anything that you're looking at, you're like, I have carried this book for years and not once have I touched it. Or maybe it's just been taking up space on the shelf. Let's put it this way. If it is just taking up space in your home and in your life, you can guarantee it is taking up energetic and emotional and mental space as well, whether you recognize it or not. So you can have a whole day where you're like, you know what? I'm clearing out all this stagnant energy. I'm letting go of the old and I am moving on. You can also, if you are already in like the letting go process, do like I said, give yourself some space to allow the identity of your past to just kind of dissolve while also making room for you to fully discover the new by taking a vacation, getting away from people, places, and things that are familiar just for a little bit until that new self is a little more solid so that you can come back to it with confidence, knowing like, yeah, I'm not falling back into that old pattern. Like I definitely let that die. I processed the death. I gave it a nice funeral. I cried, I grieved, and I totally mourned that loss. So it's done. Like that is just in my past. Give yourself that time however you need to do it. Then when you're ready, and you will be, and trust that, then you can re-enter and re-emerge. And again, Phoenix Rising, come back fully in the becoming and the rebirth of the new part of your life as well. All right. Whew, we got deep. All about the Bardo, death and rebirth, letting go of the old, moving into the new. I really hope you found this super helpful. Like always, that's my intention behind this, is just to share with you things that I learned with awareness and mindset and meditation so that it helps you. If you want to work with me as your coach, whether it's mindset, fitness, nutrition, head on over to ashleydrummins.com, shoot me a message. We will set up a call and we'll just take about 30 minutes or so just to talk about your goals, what you need the most help with, and come up with a plan to help you get there. But in the meantime, sit with yourself, give yourself the respect and the time to just get to know who you are and what you want and move in that direction with a clean slate, knowing that you have a whole new life that wants you, but also give yourself the process to move in between the Bardo of letting go and becoming. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Please subscribe. I will send you some new episodes every single week. Thank you for listening on the Phoenix Rising podcast.